But we're talking about race, and I'm like, man, this is a topic. Somebody's going to get offended today. I don't want to. I'm going to try not to. But the very topic is divisive. It just is. I'll tell you why in a moment. Let me go back to how I was brought up. I am straight out of Lompoc. I am from the hood of Lompoc. You don't even know where that's at. My dad was military. Do we have any military people here? Yep. I thought it would be a little louder, but okay. He was in the Air Force, the mighty Air Force, as some people call the cheer force, but it's the Air Force. Every branch, kids every other branch. So it's an Air Force environment. A lot of diversity. Doesn't necessarily mean everybody's on the same page, but there's a lot of diversity. And when you retire, you kind of either move away or you move down into the valley, and I lived in Vandenberg Village, which is part of the Lompoc area. And to just give you a little clue as to what the place is like, my mom had done a semester at USC. So years ago in '74, when we moved from Detroit out to Vandenberg Air Force Base, it wasn't on the map. Lompoc was not on the map. So she's like, where's it at? Somebody said, it's near LA. It's 2.5 hours north of here. And back then, once you pass like Woodland Hills, once you hit Woodland Hills, there was nothing. Bruh, there's something. I mean, it's built up, but you're right. There's not a whole ton. But there was literally no development for like miles. And she's just crying as we're driving up. Where in the world are we? And it's up in the Central Coast. If you've ever been to Solvang or Buellton or something like that, it's a really beautiful area. What did we do? What did we do for fun? I think we used to tip over cows. We used to run through the graveyard at night. A lot of stuff happened in Lompoc. And in my area, all the streets were named after like the stars and the constellations. So we lived on Aldebaran, and then we lived on Mars and Uranus. Seriously. And so that was kind of my environment. So we're talking about race today. I have a perspective, and it doesn't matter where you're at, you're still this in a lot of people's eyes. Because I moved down to LA to go to UCLA back in '85, and I got a different experience. So pretty much my growing up has been down here in LA on the west side. All right, so talked about my conversion, my profession. I really want to talk about this today, though. Because really, we're going to try to be light, but race is divisive by nature. It's a social construct. It actually is made up, but it has real implications. We're all part of one race, the human race. Now, that would be all kumbaya if that's how everybody in the world felt, and that would be great if that's how everybody in the United States acted. But we know it's not. So we can act like the elephant in the room, right? That's the series, the elephant in the room. In fact, let's hit the next slide. Oh, you don't have to do that because they gave me the world's simplest. I can do it myself. Sorry, it's been a while. We're talking about the elephant in the room, race in the church. So this might disappoint some of you. Because some of you came and you're like, oh, cool, we're finally going to talk about it. We're going to take a stand. I don't know if I'll take the stand that you expect me to take. Some of us are like, oh, man, we're going to talk about race. I really don't want to be there today because I'm tired of hearing about it. Friends are like, so you're going to talk about race. You're going to take a knee, right? Or you're going to stand what? Hey, there's a lot going on. A lot going on. You got feelings about it. So do I. I don't know if this is the place to talk about it. Or is it? What I want to talk about is principles. I want to talk about principles in the Word because we have to deal with at times this elephant in the room. What does elephant in the room mean? I'm sure you guys have talked about it. It's basically something that everybody sees, but nobody wants to talk about it. So how in the world can we all come in here, and I'm looking at all different shades of brown in here. All different shades of brown. I said brown. Some are just very lighter, much more lighter than brown, all right? Some are darker. So we have all different types of shades in here. You come in out of the world, you know how things go at your workplace. at your school. You know what kind of conversations go on, and you feel uneasy about it. And sometimes we might even jump into certain things. You got Facebook. You're tired of stuff. You see your brothers and sisters on Facebook spouting off. I see it. I got brothers, I'm like, do I hit the button or not? And so here we are, we're supposed to be a fellowship. So to not talk about it is kind of wrong. How we talk about it matters. How we talk about it. So I'm not going to be like, this is right or this is wrong. I've got my feelings about it, and so do you. And you know what? We're going to find out that really isn't going to make a difference anyway. That's not going to push us towards unity, arguing who's right and who's wrong. So I may offend some people. I'm really, really sorry about it. It's not like I woke up going, yeah, I will go down and find a new group of people I'm going to really offend. It's going to be great. And guess what? It's going to be streaming video, so there'll be other people I'll get to offend. It's not really what I'm trying to do. All right? And I simply cannot say enough about this. If something strikes a chord with you outside of the spirit and everything, and you want to really, really, really learn and get sensitized and things like that, take a class. Take a couple classes. Have some great conversations, and we'll talk about that as well. But today, in a 30-minute, 40-minute, hour and a half thing that I'll do, I'm joking, it's not going to be that long. There's no way to get down to something that is at the core of our nation. It's no way to do it. So I, by nature, will disappoint some of you. The elephant in the room. Now, I came across this study about racial microaggressions, which we will talk about a lot today, in the classroom. And it resonates with me because growing up, I often was the only African-American student in the class. Most of the time, the only African-American boy. And so I have my experiences that have shaped me to feel a certain way and to be sensitized. And as a teacher, I hold very close to my heart, and I protect that. I try to for every student, no matter what they look like or what they believe when they come into my classroom. So I am a social justice educator. So that's my bent. That's where I come from. So when I put out this survey, I'm thinking, oh, this would be kind of interesting to model these questions, since school is an institution, and in many ways, church is an institution. What would it be like to find out maybe what some of my brothers and sisters in Long Beach might be thinking and feeling about their experience when they come in here into a corporate environment like this? So, again, I'll hit my button. Bam! Here's a question. I have had my contributions minimized in the church because of my race. So the blue would be the yes, 10%. 1% did not respond, but 88% feel like that is not their experience. Great! That is awesome. I'm not being flippant. That is great. It would be very sad if it were flipped the other way. I'm not ignoring the fact that 10% feel differently. There we go. I have been made to feel that the way I speak is inferior in the church because of my race. Again, 91% of the people that responded didn't feel that way. That's good. There's 9% that do. Got quiet in here. I have experienced not being taken seriously in the church because of my race. 88% don't feel like that's their experience. 9% do, 3 did not respond. Now, we can feel one of two ways about this. Great, we're in good shape. We're in great shape. We could also feel like, you know what? There's that small percent, though, that they feel differently. So the question for all of us is, at what percent do we actually start to really be compassionate about that? What is your measuring line? What is the percent? Is it 1%? Does that make you feel a little bad inside, a little uneasy inside? Now, this is very interesting, too, because we're talking about stereotypes in this one. I have had stereotypes made about me in the church because of my race. Almost half, 40%, said, oh, yeah. They may not make me feel this way, but when it comes to stereotypes, oh, stuff that's been said, stuff that hasn't been said, stuff that's been done, stuff that hasn't been done. This is what we need to focus on. Scripture says, Be alert and sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of sufferings. But you say, is every country thinking the way we're thinking? I don't know. There's a principle here, though. And the principle is Satan is roaring around like a lion looking for someone to devour. He hates our unity. He hates the idea of Christians. He hates the idea of us worshiping together and having true fellowship, something beyond what the world does. Diversity is only a start. So he does not like this. He wants to keep the elephant in the room. He doesn't want to expel the elephant. He loves the fact that I can get all these Christians and they can feel these little things, feel a little funny, right? And then when they get around other people, they don't know how to act, or they get a little bitter, or they get a little dismissive. I'll capitalize on those things because at some point when that person goes through something, they're going to go, oh, see, they've been doing this a long time, this church. I'm out. He's patient. But the scriptures say that we need to what? Be what? Alert. I love that. Be alert. Come on, click. The word there, and I'm going to fake like I know some Greek. I looked it up just like you can. Gregorio, I said it fast. It sounded good. It means vigilant, responsible, watchful. It literally means stay awake, or as we say, stay woke. Satan creeping. He gonna find you. Right? So everybody wants to stay woke. Woke, 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 woke. I don't know how woke I am. I feel like I'm woke until I meet somebody else that's woker. And then I think they're woke, and then somebody else is wokest. How woke do I need to be socially? Because I did a training recently, and I thought I was woke. And what happened was, there was you guys been to a lot of these professional developments, educators, you know it all too well. And presenters get up there and they present these things, but they do this all the time, so you never know if they're person. Sometimes it happens at church with preachers. And so you talk to them afterwards, and you're trying to make a connection. So there was a break, and there were two presenters. One I perceived was African American. The other I perceived was white, and that we can unpack that too. And so she said some things in her discourse that made me think that she was from an area that I'm familiar with. I have family in New York, in Brooklyn, and so I went up to her. I said, hey, where are you from? Because you sound like you're from New York, right? No. And the look on her face was like I offended her. I was like, what happened? I said, she goes, what made you think that? I said, whoa. There were some things that you said that made me think of my family, and I heard a New York accent. And so I kind of like to just know where people are from. The other perceived white woman comes over and says, so what are you doing? I was like, I just asked her about where she's from. And she said, well, why do you want to know that? I'm like, because I have family in the area, and I think that I'm explaining myself. I'm like, man, what is up? And so she's like, well, you didn't ask me. And so I'm a sinner. I'm sorry. I'm like, I went, oh. I said, well, no offense, but there was nothing in your vocal pattern, your intonations, that interested me at the time. So no offense, I don't mean that, but I have an interest that whenever so are you trying to get to know her? And I said, hold on, are you offended? Have I offended you that I somehow excluded you and didn't ask you? No, today's not about me, it's about you. I'm like, man, you're so woke. You are so woke. But God said stay woke a long time ago. And he's talking about being woke to the stuff that is underlying the stuff that Satan is gaming us on, right? I can get annoyed and everything, and to be quite honest, I was set off by her like the rest of the day. It was really hard for me to get over it. But she's not my sister in Christ. Now, I want to be better, and it did get better, but I'm telling you, I had a stumbling block because of that. We have to stay woke to the things that divide our fellowship without ignoring the stuff that really does bother us. It's a two-way street. So, today, we're going to talk about how we can be alert to a certain thing called microaggressions, Rob's favorite topic. There's a whole side note. I might make jokes over here with the crew. Don't get offended. I'm just communicating. We're going to talk about what they are. We're going to talk about what they look like, why we make them, and what we can do about them. So I'm going to give you the upfront point, just in case you hate everything else I say. Here's the upfront point. We need to address racial microaggressions, the hurts, the blindness, the disrespect, by listening to one another. Amen? Bam. Let's get some definitions. Race, as I said it before, it's a social construct to distinguish groups of people from one another, often for the purposes of what? Distributing power. Racism is a belief system based on race to establish groups as superior or inferior to others, and thereby distribute power and or privilege accordingly. School's in. Bias, prejudice, favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair, and it's often unconscious. And then finally, microaggression. These are the slights, the insults, or the automatic disregards stemming from a conscious or subconscious bias or attitude of superiority. Now let's go back. It's the world's easiest thing. They told me so.
For people who still don't think that microaggressions are a problem,
Oh, you're so well-spoken.
just imagine, instead of being a stupid comment, a microaggression is a mosquito bite.
Ugh, it's a compliment.
Mosquito bites and their itch are one of nature's most annoying features. But if you're only bitten every once in a while,
No, where are you really from?
Cleveland?
sure, it's annoying, but it's not that big a deal. The problem is that some people get bitten by mosquitoes a lot more than other people. I mean, a lot more. Whether it's on a date,
Oh, your English is so good.
Excuse me?
going grocery shopping,
You know, everything happens for a reason.
I'm just buying apples.
commuting to work,
So when are you gonna have a baby?
watching TV.
We have to keep the Redskins name. It's part of our culture and history.
We got some nervous laughter. Have we heard some of those? Have we heard some of those in the fellowship? Shh, don't tell anyone. Racial microaggressions. You know what? We've all experienced this. It's just that, like they said in the video, some experience it much more often than others. And some experience them much more often in the fellowship than others. So it's worth talking about. I want to share just a few of mine. Some are going to range from the funny to the not so funny. All right? And I remember when Shelly and I, years and years and years ago, we were looking for an apartment. And it was in the late 80s, I guess, 90s, I don't know. And we're going through the apartment complex with the landlord, and we're looking, he's showing, and in between, he's whistling Jungle Fever. We thought it was funny. We're like, wow, this dude, he's like 75 years old. I'm like, first of all, I was like, wow, he's seen the movie. That's amazing. This dude is going to see a Spike Lee joint. All right, good. But he was whistling Jungle Fever. I'm like, the audacity, wow, amazing. Then I can remember as early as 7 years old in class, I had the big Michael Jackson afro. So when I walked, it would go, right? And I remember Mr. Jensen's class. We had creative writing, and a kid wrote a story called The Day I Got Lost in Devon's Hair. There's like, oh, dang, really? Yes. And it was long, too. He had every kind of animal. I met a tiger. I met a lion. I was like, wow. I looked around. There was nobody else with an afro. Nobody else was African American in that class. And I had to sit there, and he let the kid read the entire thing. And when my mom asked about it, who's an educator, he said he was just expressing his creativity. That happened all the time. I carry a stick in my desk, sawed-off broom. My mom said he has the authority to use it. If y'all can't do anything about it, he can use it. Somebody said, uh-oh. Yeah. I remember then, as a teacher, my first year, there was a student who had won an award to go and visit the White House. This kid was brilliant. And the local newspaper was coming to interview him. And everyone else had gone. I told him, you can meet me at 3:15 or whatever. So I'm a neat freak in my class. So I'm sweeping, cleaning up. She came in. She goes, hi, I'm looking for Mr. Smith. That's me. So sorry. I was like, what? So she came back and apologized. She goes, I thought you were the janitor, and that was on me. I was like, wow, I wasn't even thinking that, but it was on her. And then there was a time in 94, right before I became a Christian. I'm a huge Dallas Cowboy fan. I didn't hear anything? Okay, I guess it's safe. Y'all know you want to boo. It's fine. It's all right. I'm like not even into the NFL right now. We can talk about that later. But me and my buddy, we were so into it, we flew down to Atlanta for the Super Bowl that year. And it was Dallas when they whooped Buffalo for the second time. It was their fourth Super Bowl. We won't get into that, all you haters. But we were geared up, and we had some friends, back from the UCLA days that were playing on both sides and stuff. So we would hang out at the hotel and everything. So it got really funny because dads were coming up to us, hey, can you sign, with the kids, can you sign? And me back in the day, sure. I'm signing Devon Smith, 51, who happened to be a very famous Cowboys number at the time. And so dads were like, I'm sorry, who are you? I go, practice squad, keep watching. All right, next. And so my attitude was like, hey, it's your fault if you just thought that just because I'm 6'2" African-American, 220, wearing cowboy gear, hanging out at the Cowboy Hotel during the Super Bowl, that's your fault if you want to be racist. Whatever, right? So there's funny things that happen. People make assumptions all the time. But then there's been times in the church where I've had people who were in positions of authority who have said things to me, and you probably can relate. You're not black enough. Wow, okay? And you being white can tell me that I'm not black enough because you've served in a ministry where there were a lot of black people in the ministry. Okay, gotcha. How was I supposed to feel about that? That's not very cool. And I know people have had those kinds of interactions before, but I find there were times where I'm like, man, do I need to talk about this or not? And it's scary sometimes to talk about that, and I can tell you the reasons why when we get to it. But I've had things like that. And there's been other times walking down the street, me and a buddy, and we're just having a good time. We're not doing anything. Dad pulls his kid closer. Kid's a little scared. And then 2 steps later, he's like, it's okay, son. They're rappers. I'm on a prayer walk. I'm praying. Thank you, God, for all of this stuff. And I walk by. There's no sidewalk, so I got to walk in the street. And I hear click. I'm like, wow. I don't know, for some of you, I can go on and on and on. And you know what? You can come up here and go on and on, too. Some of us may not be able to go on and on and on. And I know that because some of you answered, this has never been my experience. So as they said, some people get stung by mosquitoes a lot more than others. And I want to say to some of us, not everything is racist. Not everything is racist. But a lot of stuff is. Not everything is racist. Not everything is white privilege. A lot of it can be. That's not what we're here to argue. That's not what we're here to discuss. They occur in and out of the church is the point. Here's some other questions that I ask. Have you ever racially offended someone in the church? Have you ever offended somebody in the church? I know I have. Since I've been thinking about this, it's amazing how much stupid stuff I say. And I wish it was all just racial, but it's like across the board. I just say stupid stuff all the time. Like this one brother was like, hey, we just celebrated our anniversary. Oh, that's great. What's it been, like 50 years? He's like, bro. Like, I don't know why I said that. I got a neighbor who is Jewish, and she was celebrating the holiday, and I know my one little phrase, and I don't know why. I rolled the window down, and I said, Lashana Tova. And she's like, thanks. And I thought to myself, that was stupid. Why did I say that? What if it was the other way around? I'm just walking, she rolled the window down. Happy Kwanzaa! I don't know. Does she know that I celebrate that? It's weird, the stuff that we say. So I'm trying to give you an understanding that though I've been microaggressed tons of times, it's a regular thing, I still am not immune to dishing it out myself in regular fashion. And I think we have to see ourselves both ways. Amen? All right, so let's talk about this. Have you ever racially offended someone in the church? Here's some things that you said, and I only picked a few. I made a statement that people from that person's race are crazy. Wow, I know, right? Okay, appreciate the honesty. And that was from Anonymous Christian. You know that person. I've said, that's how white people respond. Anonymous Christian. It was the same one that said all of these, by the way. They really got issues. You need to study with them. I've made thoughtless remarks that were perceived as derogatory, though it was not my intention. Then I asked, have you ever been racially offended by someone in the church? They thought I would have grown up in Orange County because I didn't speak like other black people did. My hot button is when anybody says, bro, you're real articulate. I have, to this day, never ever, I'm just going to say this, I've never ever heard anybody speak of any white person as articulate. I have always heard that as a surprise. So it rubs me a little bit. It rubs me a little bit. My date made a comment about dog meat possibly being in the food. I never asked her on another date. Anonymous Christian. You're a spicy Latina. Spicy. Right? What would you say? You're an unspicy Latina. You're so unspicy. Spicy. Spicy. Really? All right. It happens. But this was a little alarming, but not surprising. Alarming, but not surprising, because I know I fit in there. Did you have a conversation? Now, wait a minute. You knew you offended that person, and you knew you were offended by that person. Did you have a conversation with that person about that incident? Out of the people that responded that they had been microaggressed in such fashion or had been the microaggressor in such fashion, 29 people, 6 people said that they had. The majority of us don't talk about how we've been racially offended. The question is, why? There's the elephant. The elephant is not so much that people microaggress, because that happens all the time. The elephant is, why don't you talk about it? Why? Well, I think if we're honest, fear. I'm afraid to. I know fear runs in my heart that way because I might blow up. I might not be articulate in that moment. I might lose all my articulation and get angry. Or maybe I've tried to before with someone like that person and it didn't work. I've talked to leaders before who said this stuff and they shut me down. I've talked to that brother or that sister and they shut me down. Fear. Or there's scriptures. Satan goes, oh, don't talk about it. It's to a man's credit to overlook an offense. It's true. It is. But then my question is, when do you talk about it? Because if it's to a man's credit to overlook an offense, you've been credited, some of us have been credited quite often. And there's also another scripture that says, don't let anything come out of your mouth except for what is helpful for others. And if something's coming out of this brother's mouth or this sister's mouth that's not helpful, not wholesome, you're allowing them, you're complicit in them destroying the fellowship. Not them, but Satan using them to destroy the fellowship. Or you're storing up bad credits against yourself because at some point you're going to get tired of it and you're going to go off. Or let one thing happen in the church and you'll blow up about it. So the question is, at what point do you talk about it? Or we might say, you know what, it's not worth it. Man, people are always tripping. And you know what, I'm going to get above that. You know what, that's great if it doesn't bother you. But at some point, if it does bother you, then that's probably the prompting of the Spirit that something's not right. It's no big deal. Didn't go well last time. Or maybe they're pretty spiritual and I just heard it wrong because I'm the sinful one. Do these things resonate? Can I get an amen if they do? Because I know they do. But right now, you're asking yourself, yeah, why didn't I talk about that? And that's fine. That's good. That's good. What causes these microaggressions in the church? It's a good question. Number one, bias. How comfortable are you with me saying this? You are biased. Does that bother you? Be honest. It's all right if it does. It bothers me. I don't want to be biased. But you know what? I'm in the world, and I try not to be of the world. And you know what? There's a lot going on culturally around me. I have my story, right? So I've grown up. I'm biased, and so are you. Blindness. Do you like that? Some of us are blind. We all are blind in some area. So I'm going to tell you right now, the reason why you make microaggressions are because at least two reasons. I'm not saying this is exhaustive, but you're biased, at least unconsciously, and you're blind in some areas. But if I tell you you're a sinner, are you offended by that? You missed the mark. I missed the mark. That doesn't offend. We understand that truth, right? Well, here we go. So the sooner we accept that and understand it, the sooner we get to real conversation. Amen? Here's the way racial bias works. We've got buckets. And they say, in general, we've got 3 buckets, and then everything's, sub-buckets under that. Race, sex or gender, and age. When we see somebody, those are the first things that register in our unconscious mind. So I just want to talk about the racial bucket. And the issue is, we've got people, based on our experience, our bias, that are in buckets. And every once in a while, somebody comes along and they don't fit in your bucket too well. And you've got a decision to make. Do I hold them into the bucket I want them in? Or do I expand my bucket because they obviously aren't fitting? And that's not on them, that's on me. Which one? It's a racial bias. So the brain is designed to take as much information as possible into the subconscious because there are millions to billions, that sounds good to say, of these inputs that are going on all the time. Right now, you've got light, sound, you've got people next to you, your touch, everything. And even driving, you've got so many things. So you're doing things subconsciously so you don't go crazy, so that you don't blow your stack. So much is going into the subconscious. Well, guess what? Your bias and everything like that often is working there as well. So you say things and do things, or don't say and don't do things because of your unconscious bias. All right? That's how that works. So here's what we need to do. The scripture says in James 1, My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. If you need to take a look at that again, look at that. Those three things, we've seen it over and over and over again. Being quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Well, then why am I so quick to become angry? Because my buttons get pushed. That part of the brain that protects my worldview, when somebody comes at me with their facts, with their opinions, with their perspective, it can attack what's back in there. And so I can be very quick to get angry. But if I'm quick to listen, that can counteract that. And there have been times, one time I'm thinking very specifically, a sister whom I love. I love this brother and sister. We were talking, we were having lunch, and it came up, and she goes, I can't remember exactly what she said, but I'm going to paraphrase, and it went something like this. You're not like the black people that I grew up with. Some of you are shaking your head. Now, I didn't feel like this racist sister. Check. I didn't feel like that. And this is what I said. What do you mean? Now, at work, it's more like, what do you mean? I tried to be gentle. What do you mean? And the thing is, I let her hang for a while on it. If I were to do that again, I would find a more loving way. I think I started off with the right idea. I think it's right to say, tell me more about what you mean by that. She needed to take some responsibility for the comment. But I left her on the hook a little too long, and she was squirming. The next day, she was so embarrassed that it affected our fellowship. I mean, we had a conversation. I'm like, look, I want to reassure you. I get it. I understand. We talked about it and everything like that. It was a good conversation. But I'm like, man, I should ask her and not get angry about it, or even the subtle anger, and put somebody through the ringer. We're brothers and sisters, okay? Some people are going to say things that don't come out right, that do come from their racial bias. Yes. But we still have to find a way to treat one another with love and be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Just like when I asked the presenter, where are you from? I felt like, dang, you're blowing me out of the water. We can't treat one another that way. Amen? Blindness. Little test. Hopefully you've not seen this. You've probably seen things like it. But I want you to test your awareness. Count the times that the seagull throws the stick. Are you ready? Y'all don't sound like you're ready. Are you ready? I'm treat you like my classroom. Are you ready? All right, here we go. I don't really sound like that. Are you counting? There are people going 6. 7, 8. All right, how many? But did you see the crocodile? Huh? All right, try it again. Look for the crocodile. Look for the crocodile. Here we go. Look closely. Raise your hand when you see it. Now, some of you are sitting next to somebody and went, oh, and you're like, where? I see nothing. What? So when I did this, they're like, so what'd you see? I'm like, I saw a bunch of birds. They were walking back. What else did you see? Shadow. There's little things in the sand. Oh, the shadow, it's the sun must. I saw everything in the screen that you could possibly see except the crocodile. Now, why does that happen? Some of us see stuff so easily, and others are like, I don't get it. I'm blind. I don't see it. Or you get frustrated. How do you not see that? Well, how do you not see right? And we get frustrated, but the truth is, somebody's blind to something. in that. So what are you going to do about it? So I got a question for us. When you're confronted with something, a way that maybe you've offended somebody, what is your natural response? Is it deflection? Is it humility? Is it help me to see it? Is it I'm so sorry, I really want to see it? This has implications, brothers and sisters. This is big. Second Corinthians 10, 3-5 says, "For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ." I got to tell you, not long ago, there was a brother that's going through some intense stuff family-wise. He was a brother that was always had a foundation, it seemed like. His life was all settled. He did well in his job. His kids seemed to be doing well. He was always chipper until this tragedy happened and his life got turned upside down. And we were talking, driving, and there was another brother in the back seat. And this brother starts opening up about all the different ways that his life has changed and how he's in crisis and how he's fighting and how he's learning new things and the books that he's reading and the tears that he's shedding and all of these different things, just heartfelt things. And I'm listening because that's what I'm trying to be trained to do, is listen. And as he's going on, I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. I'm listening. I'm really getting somewhere. And after he was done, I was real patient. I let him just go on. Great Christian I am. Oh, man, this is good. And I said, "Do you mind if I share something?" "No, go right ahead." I'm like, "All right, I'm doing well." I said, "Brother, you are more alive than I've ever known you to be in my life. You're going through stuff, but you are alive." And he goes, "Amen." And then the brother in the back seat, he's weeping. And he's shedding tears for this brother. And he's going, "I'm so sorry that that's your experience in God's kingdom. I'm so sorry that you feel alone. I'm so sorry that you feel misunderstood. I'm so sorry that people have not reached out to you, even though they want to and that they're tripping over themselves. I'm sorry for the way that's left you." And I'm sitting there going, "Oh, I thought what I said was good." I was blind. I missed it. See, when someone is sharing their story, you and I need to listen. Listen to what? Listen to your own heart. Listen to what the Spirit is putting on your heart. I couldn't see it. You know why? I was looking at how many times the seagull dropped the stick. I was listening to how awesome his sharing was. And so I tried to encourage him. Wasn't anything wrong that I said. I was just blind to what he needed. What he needed was understanding. What he needed was fellowship. What he needed was somebody to understand how he felt. Someone that would understand and empathize with his story. Not, "You're so faithful." That's the conversation we need to have. So when the scripture talks about we fight with weapons that are not of this world, no amount of facts that you share with some brother of yours 3,000 miles away on Facebook is going to change his opinion about what's going on in the world. No amount of your intellect or your superior words are going to change anybody's mind. You will only have fine-sounding arguments. You will not come through with a demonstration of the Spirit, amen? You will only stir things up. And you know I'm right because we've tried it. We've tried these weapons of the world, and they don't work. So I have a different thing to offer you. How about if we use listening as a weapon? What would that be like? Instead of the weapons of the world in terms of factual information. Instead of arguments, what if we listened? Instead of forcing people to comply, what if we listened? Instead of shaming people, what if we listened? Instead of disregarding people, disrespecting people, defriending people, and distancing ourselves from our brothers, what if we listened? Listen to what? Tell your story. Open up, tell your story, and then let the other person listen without judgment, without evaluation, in silence, and listen to the Spirit do His job in your heart. I got a couple of challenges. Number one, get together with someone not like you. Share your stories this week without trying to correct, pacify, or minimize. And then I want you to, secondly, listen to your thoughts. And like the scripture says, take them captive. Because you might just find that there's something wrong maybe with your worldview as it relates to your brother and sister. You might just find that the Spirit might be telling you, you know what? The way you've been thinking about it, there's some scriptures you really, really are being blind to. I think God has something different planned for us. Instead of us arguing, instead of us ignoring the elephant in the room, I think He wants to get the elephant out of the room. Is that too hard to agree with? We got the elephant in the room. Somebody let him in the room. Get him out of the room. Don't just notice him. Do something about him. He's an elephant. Get him out. And this is one way that we could do it. Share your narrative. Don't edit it. Share it. Be humble. Be vulnerable. And let the other person hear it. And then you're on the listening side. Listen without evaluation. And take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. This is a great time for us to take communion. Amen. We're talking about unity. You cannot have the word communion without that word, unity. We are communing. And I want to point us to a truth in Colossians 1, 21 and 22. It reminds us who we are. It says that we were enemies in our minds due to our evil actions. And it makes me think about all the different ways. We're talking about microaggressions. How many times have I macroaggressed my Father in heaven? And yet, we were enemies, and He said, I am going to take my enemy and love him. And when we started studying the Bible, that's when we first started listening. And that listening allowed us to change. And when we changed, we were in communion with our Lord. And He says, as often as you do this remembering me. I want us to remember at one point, we were the microaggressor. And we've been doing that still. But God accepts us and loves us. He knows our story. He's a part of our story. And He wants to commune with us. And Christians have been doing this for 2,000 plus years. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pray. We're going to take the juice, which symbolizes His blood that was shed for us, to cover us for all of this stuff, this goofiness, this weirdness that we deal with, to cover up all of our awkwardness when we talk to one another. He's paid the price for all of it. And we're going to take the bread, which symbolizes His body, that He sacrificed for us, to show us how much it means to Him that we be unified. I pray that today has been an encouragement on your heart, on your soul, and has given you some tools to deal with this elephant in the room. Let's take communion. Let's pray.